Hey guys, today I want to talk about 7 modern turn-based RPGs. Most of them I can't quite seem to fit into regular videos, and others I just randomly felt the need to cover. Yes, the majority of them are really good, so let's begin. Number 7, Piece Odyssey. I'd like to start by saying I've never watched the series, so I don't know any of these characters. What I do know is that this game follows one of the many adventures of Luffy and his gang of pirates. They are now stranded in a mysterious island. Initially, some of their friends are missing and they'll have to go find them. Later, the story will revolve around the island itself and go on from there. This game was developed by a company known as ILCA, and published by Bandai Namco. It's available everywhere except the Switch. It has amazing graphics for this time, considering it was released in 2023. So you play as the pirates exploring the island, finding items around and progressing through jumps or hooks like this one for example. Battles are played with up to 4 active allies, but you can switch to your backup roster at any time. Actually, the game encourages you to do just that because characters are bound by a triangle weakness system. One type is strong or weak against another one. Usually, selecting a skill will let you know if the enemies are weak to it or not. So you've got a basic turn-based combat with weaknesses to exploit and cool looking animations for every single skill. There are also battles called dramatic scenes where you have to fulfill a condition in order to win. For example, here I have to prevent this guy from dying throughout the battle. Apart from that, they are regular turn-based battles. There's nothing that special from them, but I don't know, there's just something about them that feels kinda cool. Anyway, this is a fun game. Even if I'm not a fan of the series, you know what? It hooked me up enough to play it and enjoy it. So yeah, this is recommended, people. Number 6, Astria Ascending. I haven't talked about this game ever since I made this other one video 5 months ago. Developed by Artisan Studios from France, but with a script by Kazushige Nojima and music by Hitoshi Sakimoto, it was supposed to be a great collaboration project, but a lot of critics ate it up with harsh criticism. While still a fun, creative and very enjoyable game actually, I kinda agree with the consensus. It's a bit of a broken RPG with terrible balancing issues. It's impossibly hard on normal or harder difficulties, making it an unforgiving grindfest. Fortunately, you can do what I did. Use easy or very easy modes to traverse the dungeons, maybe grind a bit, and then switch to normal or hard for the bosses. Every time you're about to face a boss, the game tells you. That way, you won't feel like the game is wasting your time, cause on normal mode, it definitely does. Developers were smart enough to add the easier modes, and if I may say something in their defense, the easy mode is still challenging. It feels like it should have been the real normal mode. Those looking for a sordid nightmare will find Astria Ascending a rewarding experience, but also those looking for a game that can respect their time can find it as well using those settings. I really do recommend this game, guys. Please give it a chance because it's beautiful with addictive combat that revolves around exploiting enemy weaknesses, and it doesn't wear too much with its narrative like other RPGs with tons of dialogue. Number 5, Indivisible. Oh man, I've been dying to talk about this game for years. This is much worse than Astria Ascending in terms of balance, but unlike Astria, this I cannot recommend, and I really wanted to. I remember I played the demo many years ago and was left with good impressions, but when I finally got my hands on the full game, a few things broke it for good, man. Developed by Lab Zero Games, they no longer exist, I wonder why. With music by Hiroki Kikuta. It's also played in 2D with some puzzles and platforming involved. The platforming part is a major mechanic since it also revolves around jumping or leaping on walls. I have zero problem with this part since it's greatly implemented, and also no issues whatsoever with any other gameplay mechanics, except the battle system. It should have been fantastic, inspired by a Valkyrie profile, each character on one button, but within battles that play on real time. That's right, no one's gonna wait for you to make your decisions. Because of this, it's considered even on Wikipedia as an action RPG, but then why is every character waiting for the enemy to react after executing their attacks, and they're all just waiting there as if waiting for their turn to come? I'm no expert, so let's just say it's one of those unique hybrids. And as I said, it should have been good, but it's stupidly hard. Well, that wouldn't be a bad thing if you could select easier difficulties or if you could grind. What kills it for me is that you can't grind because enemies don't respawn. You go back and they're gone. All of them, no matter what you do, they don't come back. So I can't even say, oh, guess what? It's hard, but it's a grind fest. Nope. Anyway, if you're looking for an RPG of this kind, I still think there's a lot of good to be found on it. But to me, it's a hard pass. Number 4, Voice of Cards Trilogy. I wanted to talk about this trilogy because I'm pretty surprised 3 games were released in less than 2 years. Yoko Taro was the creative director, but this is really the work of Masa Mimura and Yuki Matsuo, their studio name being just Alim. The reason why these guys managed to develop 3 full games in less than 2 years is not only thanks to the help of Square Enix backing them up, it's because also they're very simple RPGs with an easy interface. They resemble a tabletop RPG since you move around with the cards in a menu-based system. It is actually through these menus that you explore the overworld pretty much as a board game piece, and even the towns themselves. You keep unlocking events, items, and different areas until you reach your destination. Battles are also linked to this interface as you control 4 card-based characters with different stats. Each game introduced new details to this combat, but all 3 are bound by the gems. They control your skills, and you get a bunch of them each turn. And there's also a die system, you know, like in real-life board RPGs. I never would have expected this combat to be interesting since the game's appeal was clearly out of the ordinary. That's what makes them so unique, with both narrative and gameplay developed from a unique perspective. Number 3, Earthlock, Festival of Magic. I made it quite far into this game until I just couldn't go on. If you see a pattern here, it's no coincidence. I did want to point out that some RPGs can get a lukewarm reception by a lot of people when their balance and difficulty is all over the place. Earthlock is one of those games that prove a point some haters have made. Turn-based combat is slow. It isn't for the large majority of RPGs, but here, battles do take forever! The lack of difficulty settings and good balancing takes things out of control. Still, I put a lot of time into this because despite its fatal flaws, I thoroughly enjoyed playing through it. It just got to a point where the grinding was too demanding and I didn't have time to keep at it. Snow Castle Games from Norway was responsible for it, and despite its mixed reviews, they're already working on a sequel, yeah. Anyway, it's a world of fantasy, steampunk, and magic with interesting character design. So far so good, but then you meet the combat. Characters fight in pairs, with one being the main attacker and the other one a support ally. You can switch their roles if you want to, but the fact will remain that they can only act as one of each per battle. Their weapons and skills also change depending on what they do. Regular enemies take forever to kill, but it's not just because they have a lot of HP for no reason, but because of this system. You're practically down to only 2 attackers while the others just support or kill time. I made it all the way to a really unfair boss fight and I just died. But I have to warn you, it's just one of many unfair bosses in the game. Add the elemental strengths and weaknesses and the fact that some weapons rely on ammunition and you'll get an overall idea on how difficult it is. There's a lot to say about this RPG with many different gameplay mechanics on it. I made a long review of it live, but it's currently exclusive to members. I may have to cover this again in the future to explain it better. Number 2, Live Alive. You already know this is a remake of the original Super Famicom version that stayed in Japan. It uses HD 2D graphics, making the game look gorgeous. Music by Yoko Shimomura, which is awesome. Directed by Takashi Tokita. Did you know that the original version was a commercial failure in Japan? Thankfully, this remake did much better. It It's a game played in 7 chapters, each with their own story and characters, all in a different area, and you can start with any of these chapters at any time. Yes, even the prehistoric one. In some you have party members, in others you go solo, but they all share the same combat. It's turn-based even though you move on grids, which may confuse some people, that's the main reason why I wanted to talk about it today, but there is no map-based gameplay and there are regular random encounters, so it's not a strategy RPG. I wanted to stress that out because there's often confusion about some JRPGs like the first games in the Trail series for example, where you move on grids, but it's just that. Just because you can move on grids doesn't make it a tactical RPG. Rhapsody is another example. Popol Croix even. Live Alive is no different. You can freely move around to strategize a bit against your enemies and then approach to perform a melee or range attack. It's the minimum you do in strategy RPGs, but that's as far as it goes. After completing those 7 chapters, 2 more chapters are unlocked, the last one tying all the stories and characters together. Such an extremely unique RPG. I wish we could get more with this type of narrative and different settings. Definitely give it a try, and no, for the last time, it's not a strategy RPG. Number 1. Trails into Reverie. Yes, I just made a whole review of this game, but there was something important left unsaid in there. I want to talk briefly on how I feel the Trails series has been performing in the past few years and how it all connects to this game. So first, this is a final chapter in a whole saga that's been going for almost 20 years. The next saga is the one known as Kuro no Kiseki, which kinda translates into Trails of the Dark or something like that. I believe Kuro means dark, but I don't know Japanese, so please include in the comments if you know what it truly means and in this context. But that new series also includes some cameos and characters from this other one that ended precisely with this Reverie chapter, so did it end or not? The problem that I didn't mention in the review is connected to something that I mentioned in my podcast, a private podcast that I invite you to listen to in Patreon, link in the description. Long story short, I think this final chapter, while it's really amazing, it's once again an incorrect game to start with. I say once again because the same thing happened with Trails from Zero and Azure. It's okay to start with Zero, even though you're skipping the Trails in the Sky trilogy, which you possibly are because it's the one trilogy that's not available for modern systems, not even in Japan. But obviously you can't start with Azure. So why will you start with Reverie, right? Considering it's technically the one chapter that concludes all 3 sagas, Sky, Crossbell, and Cold Steel. Like I said in the review, it's a fanservice game, a phenomenal one, but a game that most people will find trouble getting into without having played the others. It's a game for fans that play the others. So what I'm trying to say is that I believe Falcom just released way too many interconnected sequels, and they did it in such a short amount of time. A business mistake in my opinion. But as a result, we fans got exactly what we wanted with Trails into Reverie, and that is what I didn't mention in the review. This game is a freaking masterpiece and it is stupidly strongly recommended. And those are the 7 RPGs I wanted to talk about. That's all. Thanks for watching and see you next time!